Did you know that a lack of intimacy can quietly harm your brain? And not just your relationship. Not having intimacy doesn't only affect how close you feel to your partner. Neuroscience shows it can change how your brain processes stress, safety, motivation, and even pleasure. And here's the uncomfortable part. You might be hurting yourself or your partner without realizing it. If this topic matters to you, take a second to subscribe. This channel exists to explain why these things work, not to judge them. Now let's talk about what no one really explains. The brain doesn't separate love from survival. The brain doesn't see intimacy as optional. From a neurological perspective, intimacy is a regulation system. Touch, closeness, eye contact, sexual connection, they all activate the same circuits that signal, I'm safe, I belong, I'm not alone. Studies in neuroscience show that regular intimacy helps regulate cortisol, your stress hormone, oxytocin, bonding and trust, and dopamine, motivation and reward. When intimacy is missing for long periods, the brain doesn't think, oh, life is busy. It thinks, something essential is missing. And when the brain senses prolonged emotional or physical disconnection, it shifts into a low-level survival mode. Not dramatic, quiet, but constant. What happens when intimacy drops? Here's where things get uncomfortable, but important. Lack of intimacy is associated with increased irritability, emotional numbness, lower motivation, higher anxiety, and greater sensitivity to rejection. Why? Because intimacy acts as a buffer. It helps the nervous system recover from daily stress. Without it, the brain stays slightly overactivated. You may feel tired but wired, disconnected but craving something, close to your partner physically but distant emotionally. And many people blame themselves. I'm broken. I'm not attracted anymore. I must be a bad partner. You're not. You're human. But staying in that state for too long does have consequences. Why this happens to so many couples? Let's be honest. Life gets heavy. Work, bills, kids, responsibilities, mental load. Intimacy often becomes the last thing on the list. Not because love is gone, but because energy is. And here's something most people don't realize. The brain doesn't respond to intention. It responds to experience. You don't feel connected to want intimacy. You experience intimacy to feel connected. Waiting for motivation is one of the biggest traps couples fall into. And no, that doesn't make you selfish, cold, or distant. It makes you exhausted. But remaining there, that's where things become decisive. The part no one talks about, the good side. Now here's the part you don't usually hear. Periods of reduced intimacy can, in some cases, serve a purpose. They can redirect focus during intense life phases, reduce exposure-related health risks, create space for emotional reflection, help people reset patterns that became mechanical or disconnected. In short bursts, reduced intimacy can protect energy, but the brain doesn't know when to stop. What starts as a pause can turn into a pattern. And patterns shape identity. What happens if you stay there? When lack of intimacy becomes the norm, the brain adapts. It lowers expectation. It numbs desire. It seeks regulation elsewhere. Work, screens, fantasy, distraction. And slowly, people stop missing intimacy. Not because they don't need it, but because their brain learned not to expect it. That's not peace. That's disconnection. Avoiding intimacy doesn't remove the need for it. It just pushes it underground.
Remember, the way back isn't waiting for desire. Here's the truth most people need to hear. Don't wait to feel like connecting. Connect to feel like it. The brain follows action, not the other way around. Intimacy grows through presence, not pressure. Through generosity, not performance. If you wouldn't neglect yourself, don't neglect the connection that sustains you. Be gentle. Be intentional. Be human. The more intimacy you build, the better your nervous system functions. The clearer your mind becomes. The more alive your relationship feels. If this helped you understand something about yourself or your partner, share it with someone who might need it. And if you want more content that explains why these patterns exist, not just what to do about them, subscribe to the channel. Because everything we do makes more sense when we understand why it works.